tell us more about the foundation and the amazing work that they are doing, please welcome FSHD's Managing Director, Emma Weatherley.
Tonight's gala is black and white because there's no grey in our mission to find treatments and a cure for FSHD. This disease is relentless, unpredictable, and it does strike down entire families without warning. A decade ago, my own FSHD diagnosis delivered a grim outlook. I was diagnosed at 31 years old after first showing symptoms all the way back in my childhood, and I was told there would be no treatments and no cure in my lifetime. I walked away from my doctor feeling like I had no future, and I was terrified that my children would have FSHD. It's been 10 years since that conversation, and now as Managing Director of FSHD Global Research Foundation, I don't want any other patient to feel hopeless or alone from their diagnosis. At FSHD Global, we believe a future without FSHD is possible, and we're doing everything we can to make this a reality. Curing the disease requires a multifaceted approach. Think of a puzzle. You need all of the pieces to connect and tell your story. Medical research. This foundation set a strategy for FSHD. We funded world-class global medical research that prompted scientific discovery of potential therapeutic pathways to treat and one day cure FSHD. Diagnostics. There will be no therapies or cure if our FSHD population is not diagnosed. As we continue to bring world-class diagnostic technologies to Australia, the number of identified FSHD patients continues to rise. We believe that FSHD is the fastest growing rare disease in Australia. Clinical trial infrastructure is about the interface between our FSHD patients, medical and industry. It's the gateway to therapeutic approval, which is why we must build clinical trial sites in Australia. Otherwise, Australians will miss out on global therapies. Advocacy is how we drive and shape change within Australia and globally to encourage patients, medical and industry and government to collaborate and problem solve. Clinical trials are happening across the world, but not here. Why is that? Because these puzzle pieces do not connect yet. This strategy has been discussed with government and industry. This strategy will bring international pharmaceutical companies to Australia. This strategy will expedite drug approval for Australians. And this strategy will position Australia as global leaders and can uplift the entire Pan-Pacific region. This strategy must be actioned to ensure that Australians do not miss out on future therapies when they're available. This strategy will give life to muscles and benefit all muscle disorders, the ageing population, injury and sports medicine. Clinical trial readiness is the path to treatments and a cure. The puzzle pieces are coming together. The mission is black and white. Funding is the key. I'm now thrilled to announce Councillor Claire Anderson, an FSHD Global Research Foundation Ambassador, to come to speak to us tonight. Claire is currently awaiting election results from the council election in Perth today, yet she is foregoing her celebrations back home to be here with us and share her story. Claire lives with FSHD, and when I say lives, I mean this lady really lives. She is the personification of resilience, tenacity, and grace. She's an advocate for equality, a wonderful support to her FSHD community. Her courage in the face of the challenges that FSHD presents make her a friend I am proud to have. Claire, the stage is yours.
Thanks, Emma. Love you. Thank you so much, Emma, for that lovely introduction. It's really wonderful to be here tonight to share my experiences of living with FSH with you. And we have some photos that I'd like to... But first I'd like to ask you something. Do you remember when you were 14 years old? Do you remember what was happening in your life at the time? Do you remember the friends you had? Do you remember the school that you went to? See, when I was 14, I sat opposite a neurologist and he told me that I had FSH. See, the girl that walked into that room was not the same girl who walked out. He told me it was genetic and that my mother actually has the condition as well. She was in her 40s, but her condition was much more mild and she didn't know. He also said that if I wanted to have children, that there would be a 50% chance that with each of my children, they could inherit this disease. But there was no treatment, no cure, just go live a good life. I felt very alone and I was very angry because this wasn't the choice for me. There was a lot of guilt and shame within my family. But by the time I got to 17, I thought, I do have a choice and I don't want to live with this condition. And so I decided that I wanted to end my life. And I went to the cupboard at home and I swallowed whatever I could find until my mum found me. But do you know what? It wasn't actually that I wanted to die. What I wanted was the pain to stop. I wanted the loneliness to stop. I wanted the fear of a future that I didn't understand. I wanted that to stop. And I realised in the years after that the only way that anger was going to go and that resentment was if I changed the narrative in my head. And so I started researching overseas. I had looked everywhere to find something that could help me, and it took me years. By the time I was 28, I discovered scapular fusion surgery. It was being done in the US, but never in Australia. I contacted an orthopaedic surgeon in the US. He explained to me that there was somebody in Sydney who had seen the procedure done. So I flew to Sydney from Perth, and I met with that orthopaedic surgeon, but it wasn't going to be feasible for me to have it there. So I went home and I discovered an orthopaedic surgeon who was willing to trial this surgery for the very first time. So what they did was they fused the scapula to my rib cage with titanium screws, and they took a bone graft from my pelvis. I was wrapped in plaster, and I slept in a chair for 8 weeks while my body healed. And then I had 3 months of intensive therapy. And then the 12 months later, I did the other side. But gee, it was a long and painful process. And I started to negotiate with FSH because my legs were becoming very weak. I was falling more regularly. I couldn't get up off the ground. Getting out of a chair was difficult. So I thought, just let me have my arms. So if I go through this, if I can be strong enough, then let me have my arms. Because ultimately, what I really wanted was to be a mother. So I needed my arms. I researched how I could go about being a mum. I looked at adoption, and that didn't work. I looked at surrogacy, I looked at egg donation, and that didn't work. I was married at the time, but there was actually no genetic testing in WA. So we'd had the opportunity to move to Sydney to live, and that's what we decided to do. And it was in Sydney where they could do genetic testing. So we decided to fall pregnant. Now let me tell you, that was not a light decision at all. I couldn't get caught up in the romantic idea of being pregnant. I had a responsibility. I couldn't pass this condition on. And when I was pregnant, we had genetic testing, and I had to wait 3 weeks. And so I negotiated with FSH. I said, if you let this child be healthy, I won't have another one. I was desperate for her to be okay. And at the end of those 3 weeks, the results were that my beautiful Sabine did not inherit this condition. So I was free to fall in love with my child as I carried her for those 9 months. And let me tell you, she's now 22. She's studying law and an alpha female. So you can imagine the conversations between law and politics at home. So those with daughters, I sympathise with you. But she's the love of my life. And when she was 5, my marriage ended, and I knew that I had to be a role model for her. I raised her on my own, so there was not a moment of, I can't do this, I don't have the strength, I'm tired. There was only strength and keep going, because I wanted her to have the childhood that I'd always dreamed that she would. So I started researching overseas again, and I discovered that in India I could do stem cell treatment. So I flew to India, and initially I was there for 8 weeks. The treatment was experimental. I really don't know what fully I exposed myself to. So the treatment was intramuscular injections 6 days a week. They would do injections through all over my body, in my face to see if my muscles in my face would respond, in my hand, in my legs, glutes, thighs. I had IV infusions every week. My body really struggled to receive the IV infusions. I would sweat and shake, but I couldn't take anything to help with the pain. It took about 6 hours for that to subside. And then every second week, you could have an epidural catheter into the spine, and you would lay there for 48 hours while they would pump stem cells into your body. What was really important with the stem cells, apparently, was that we had to exercise. So twice a day, morning and afternoon, I would get up, I would move, and I had the fighting spirit because my daughter motivated me. I wanted to be her mum. I wanted to be there to interact with her. And she didn't ask for this. So with her strength behind me, I kept going. And I negotiated with FSH. I said, if I remortgage my house, because it was $120,000, I borrowed money from my parents. If I do this, if I put myself through this, then let me be well. Let me get Sabine to 18, and so that she can then be independent. I didn't want her to care for me. And that brings me to where I am today. What I learnt from being in India, though, what I took from that, was the importance of exercise. So 3-4 times a week, I work with an exercise physiologist. They put me in a harness, I stand and I walk, and I squat and I move, and I am determined to keep doing that. And I have to, because the more upright I am, the better my breathing is. Recently, I've started using breathing equipment at night, and I no longer have the capacity to cough. So I have to use a cough assist machine. And so I negotiate with FSH. I said, if I cut back on my career, if I sacrifice what I love to do, I enjoy coaching and mentoring women in local government because I believe in diverse voices in council to make good decisions. But how do I fit it all in? How do I fit in a career and working and spending hours every day going and exercising and keeping well? And so I negotiate. I negotiate with FSH. I will do this. I will make one sacrifice if I can keep breathing, if I can keep swallowing, and if I can be well. But what we know, and what we know with a degenerative condition, is that we are running out of time. Because it's not logical to negotiate. I know that. But it's the sanity that keeps me going. We are running out of time, and now more than ever, clinical trials are so important because I don't want to think of another 17-year-old Claire sitting there with her life in her hands thinking she has lost hope and there is no other option. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for supporting this cause, and thank you for all of us with FSH. We appreciate your commitment to us and for our quality of life. Thank you.
Well done, my friend. She's pretty incredible, Claire, isn't she? To fit in everything she does, she tries everything that's possible to try, and she just never gives up and keeps on going. So well done, Claire.
Thanks, Emma.
Well, there's Bill, there's Claire, there's Brendan, Mitch, Justin, Michelle, Matthew, Kayla, Jody, Raf, Mark, Zahara, This disease affects real people and their families. These people, and thousands just like them, are my community, they're my friends, and now as Managing Director of FSHD Global, they are my responsibility. FSHD is not just a difficult name to pronounce. It is a terrible disease to carry. It affects every aspect of your life, and it can destroy every muscle in your body. Tonight is black and white, and like I said, there is no grey in our mission. Funding is the key. In front of you, there is a pledge form. There's a QR code on your table to donate. If you're able to help us, whether it be big or small, through a financial donation or a gift of your time, just know that your impact to us is significant. It's meaningful to millions of people around the world who actively hope that a future without FSHD is possible. Can we please take a moment to pause and reflect? And I'd like to invite you all to pick up those pledge forms or scan the QR code and support us in whatever way you can.
All right, ladies and gents, now is the time, as Emma has just shared with us, her story, but also Claire's. And Claire, this is pretty incredible, but you're up for election this evening.
Yes, I am.
And you're in Western Australia,
Correct.
which you've been campaigning for quite some time.
Yeah, the last 3 months.
And you're out here swanning around with us, drinking champagne.
Look, there's no other place I'd rather be than part of this evening tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well done.
Thank you.
And what are, I guess, your two main objectives in WA if you get that vote, and I'm sure you will?
Oh, look, I've always been an advocate for people with disabilities to getting more people on council.
Yeah.
It's really important to me. And particularly lately, I've been advocating for employment of people with disabilities in local government and just diverse voices.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that they make good decisions that are across the community.
How long have you been in politics?
I have been elected to council 16 years so far.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm currently the deputy mayor, so it's great.
There you go. Ladies and gents, the deputy mayor, all the way from WA. I'm going to be there next week.
Oh, well, you know where I am.
I'll come and
Vic
I'll
Park.
look you up.
That's your primary school, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much for coming and sharing time with us tonight. I know it's a super important time. Claire, now Perth's 3 hours behind.
Yes.
So when will you know?
Hopefully later this evening. I'm sure. Got friends texting me the numbers as they come through. So if not tonight, tomorrow.
All right, ladies and gents, if you've got any mates in Perth, throw a few votes out there for Claire, and she's got her amazing causes. Well done. Thank you, Claire. Cheers.
Thank you.
Well done, Emma.